In this video, I'll tell the life story of an orc, starting from his very birth and ending with his death. Our story begins in a small settlement of greenskin folk in the fantasy world of Caldaria. Early in the morning, instead of a rooster's crow, the silence was broken by the loud groan of an orc. A wise shaman, the elder of the tribe, was helping a young huntress give birth to a little warrior. However, instead of a strong and sturdy baby, the shaman found a small, weak body in his hands. The father, a mighty and great warrior, refused to acknowledge the newborn as his son. But the mother, taking the baby in her arms, gave him a bold name, Droger. As soon as an orc child takes his first steps, he immediately starts competing with the other children. And fighting with each other is the orc's favorite pastime. But little Droger was different. His favorite place to play was the swamp near the village. There, he would catch frogs and study snakes, but he always treated them gently and let them go back into the swamp. The other children didn't understand him, and because of this, they often bullied and mocked Droger. So, when the boy grew older, they sent him to the lizard farm to help clean the pens and take care of the livestock. While the other children learned to hunt, Droger was busy in the mud and only interacted with animals. One day, the farm owner sent him outside the village to gather mushrooms in the swamp. Orcs used them to make medicine for the animals. But while walking by the pond, Droger heard the desperate growling of a lizard. It was a young Bronehorn caught in a trap. Orcs use these herbivores to teach their children how to hunt. If they find it, the young lizards will simply tear it apart. Unable to watch another creature suffer, Droger resolutely began to break the trap. The freed Bronehorn let out a joyful growl and, after nuzzling its new friend, dashed off at full speed toward the wild forest. But the young hunters who came running at the noise, realizing they would return home empty-handed today, decided to teach Droger a lesson for his ignorance and disrespect for orc traditions.
You're a disgrace to our whole clan. Just look at his ears. Was your mother a goblin?
Droger tried to say something in response, but another child immediately struck him on the head with a stone. The frenzied crowd began to beat the little orc until he lost consciousness. Many years passed since that day, but people's attitude toward Droger never changed. His father sent him to the mine to work as an overseer. Here, goblins, laborers, and captured slaves extract iron ore for the settlement. Droger's job is to guard the workers and make sure the ore mining never stops. The goblin caves are famous for being full of dangers. It's a great place for a young orc to prove himself. One day, while on duty, the young Droger heard panicked screams coming from the cave. Rushing toward the sound, he saw several reaper spiders attacking the laborers and starting to wrap them in cocoons. Snatching up his axe, Droger made several decisive leaps toward the monster. A few sharp swings, a blow, one of the reapers dropped dead, but the second spider struck with its claw, hurling the young orc against the stone wall. The monster's powerful legs and heavy body pinned Droger down, making it impossible for him to even move. The orc's weak arms were ready to give out at any moment. But suddenly, the reaper's shell cracked from an axe blow to its back. One of the slaves, a young human, had grabbed Droger's weapon from the ground and managed to run over to help him.
Why did you save me?
And why did you never once hit me with the whip? By evening, the whole village knew the story of how a brave young orc single-handedly defeated 2 spider soldiers. If the other orcs found out that a slave had picked up Droger's weapon, the slave would be killed on the spot, and the orc would be banished from the village. Time passed, days turned into years, and the friendship between Droger and the young son of the Baron of the eastern lands of the Kingdom of Karander, Karos of the Tal Varan family, grew stronger and stronger. The orc shared his food with the slave, and the slave, in turn, told amazing stories from his life, about his father and about living in the castle before he was captured by the green-skinned ones. But they couldn't keep their friendship a secret for long. Rumors quickly spread throughout the village. During one of the inspections, when the orc chieftain visited the mine, Droger and his friend were having lunch by the fire after a hard day's work.
You filthy pup!
A powerful blow to the head with a club knocked the orc overseer to the ground. The chieftain's guards immediately grabbed the slave by the arms.
You're a disgrace to the entire orc race. Befriending a human and a slave at that. You don't deserve to be among your brothers.
The guards began to beat the human with all the strength and hatred they had. All Droger could do was watch. Anger awakened within him the ancient Orcish rage, which until then had been thought of as nothing more than a legend. But if Droger had decided to help his friend, he would have been killed too.
Only in memory of your father, with whom I fought side by side like a brother, will I not banish you from the settlement. But you will go into the wild forest. Let the ancient ritual of our ancestors decide your fate.
According to legend, an orc who was honored to undergo the ritual could find one of the 5 great shrines in the forest, each of which would determine his fate. But almost no one managed to return from the forest alive. After several days of wandering through the forest, Droger's strength was nearly gone. There was no food or water, and it only rained once the entire time. But finally, luck smiled on the orc. He came across a small forest stream. As Droger began to drink the water greedily, he didn't notice a pack of wild wolves approaching him from behind. At first, the predators quietly watched their prey from afar, hiding in the shadows of the trees. Gradually, closing the distance, the pack traps its target in an inescapable ring. The strongest and most aggressive wolves start to growl and bare their teeth. Droger suddenly stood up and turned around, seeing the predators standing before him. By drawing attention to themselves, the animals give their partner a chance to attack the prey from behind. One of the wolves lunged at the orc's back, tearing off a chunk of flesh.
Crying out in pain, Droger threw the beast aside, but at that very moment another wolf leapt out of the bushes and sank its fangs into his arm. Wasting no time, a third wolf began tearing at Droger's leg, pulling the victim in another direction, pinning the orc in place and trying to bring him down to the ground. The weakened orc was about to give up, but suddenly a powerful blow from the lizard flung one of the predators aside.
A flick of the tail sent the second wolf flying the same way. An old childhood friend came to Drogar's aid. However, there were far more enemies, and they had no intention of giving up. Several beasts attacked the lizard from all sides, while the pack leader sank his sharp fangs into the rescuer's neck, bringing him down to the ground. Seeing his old friend die and feeling utterly helpless, Drogar was consumed by a wild rage and once again felt the ancient power of the orcs awaken within him. With incredible agility, he rushed at the pack leader and, grabbing the wolf by the head, tore the wild beast's jaws apart with a single powerful motion. The pack of predators immediately scattered and disappeared into the thick forest. The young orc knelt over his friend's body and burst into loud tears. But at that very moment, a bright, blinding light shone down on Drogar, and a mysterious voice said, "Inaction out of fear is weakness. To remain in control while being strong, that is the mark of a true leader." The lizard's body completely vanished, and in its place lay a mighty, formidable axe, red as fresh blood and burning rage, an ancient and powerful weapon called the blood of the ancestors. When Drogar returned to the village, he was immediately arrested. After hearing his story, the tribe's chief accused him of lying. As punishment for insulting tradition, lying, and heresy, he was sent to the Orc arena to fight for the crowd's amusement alongside the other slaves. However, the more battles Drogar won, the more respect he earned among his people, and the better he became at controlling and wielding the ancient Orcish rage that had long been forgotten. Drogar's entire life had led him to this moment, and when he realized the time had come, he challenged the chieftain to a duel. The crowd roared with excitement. According to ancient tradition, the chieftain cannot refuse a duel to a great warrior, and the winner has every right to call himself the leader of the tribe. Two mighty orcs faced off in the dusty arena for a decisive battle. Letting out his battle cry, Crust charged at the young orc, swinging his heavy axe. However, Drogar was quick on his feet. He dodged and lunged forward himself, unleashing a barrage of powerful blows on the old chieftain. Despite his experience, the chieftain began to lose ground under the onslaught of this young and fierce opponent. Finally, after a decisive series of thrusts, Drogar delivered a final crushing blow, and the former leader's body collapsed to the ground. The crowd froze for a moment, then erupted in a deafening roar. Drogar triumphantly raised his bloodied axe, and the tribe welcomed their new chieftain. During Drogar's 17 years of rule, the village began to prosper. New mines, farms, and workshops were established. Stories of the wise yet stern chieftain's reign spread throughout all the orc clans of the eastern steppes. But peace did not last forever. In the southern lands of Caldaria, among the southern swamps, a new charismatic leader united the troll tribes under a single banner and marched with an army against the human kingdom. Now the trolls are calling on the orcs to join them and take final control over the continent. The High Council of Orcs debated for a long time about starting the war. Humans have long been enemies of the green-skinned, and their lands are very fertile and rich in resources. Besides, refusing the trolls could lead to war with them in the future. So it was decided to immediately begin assembling the army. A huge united army of orcs, goblins, and trolls marched forward in an offensive. Huge disgusting monsters, hordes of ogres and mountain giants, packs of troll riders, steppe centaurs and cave goblins, the lizard queen and an old orc necromancer, seasoned warlords and entire towers of archers on the backs of lizards, a massive infantry force, and even flying shamans. Meeting little resistance, this entire army arrived at the walls of the first human stronghold, Fort Ravenwood. Battles with trolls had already been raging in the south of the kingdom for some time, so the fortress was prepared for a troll assault. Dwarven ballistae were mounted on the towers, archers were stationed along the walls, and the fortress garrison was readying for defense. Among them are representatives of many peoples from the southern continent of Caldaria. Soldiers of the Order of the Black Falcons, led by Count Jerian Astrid and Baron Severin Wolf, arrived to aid the defenders of the fort. And the King of the Kingdom of Carindor, along with the Council of the Academy of Mages, sent aid from the capital, the Skyward Guardians on their eagles, and a new marvel of technology, the Dwarven airship. The air above the stone-shielded Ravenwood fort hummed with the anticipation of the coming storm. A dark wave was rising on the horizon, a horde of trolls and orcs, their wild cries tearing through the morning silence. On the walls and towers, bristling with weapons, stood the defenders, noble knights of the Order of the Black Falcons, their cloaks billowing in the wind. Beside them stood the steadfast garrison of the fortress, ready to face the battle. Between the crenellated embrasures, the shadows of master archers flickered as they drew their bowstrings. And in the distance, at the very heart of the fortress, battle mages were finishing their spell, raising formidable stone golems from the earth. From the depths of the dense forest, a majestic ent appeared. Its branch-like arms moved slowly but inexorably toward the walls, preparing for battle. The first waves of berserker trolls surged toward the main bridge like raging rivers, trying to smash it with their fury. Behind them raced the troll lizard hunters. Their swift mounts darted ahead of the infantry like shadows, trying to find a gap in the defenses. A dwarven airship hovered over the battlefield. Its archers rained arrows down on the advancing horde, while projectiles crashed into enemy ranks, splitting the earth. In swift response, the wind tamers forcefully hurled their clay poison bombs at the fortress's stalwart defenders, while agile goblin archers, riding their formidable giant lizards, answered with devastating volleys of arrows. Their projectiles flew toward the defenders as a giant monster hurled boulders the size of an entire orc at the fortress walls, trying to break a breach. Battle cries mixed with dying screams. The clash of steel drowned out the rumble of stones. The battle raged on, turning what was once a peaceful frontier into a hellish cauldron where the fate of human lands and the will of the orcs were decided. Droger, the mighty orc chieftain, with his band of fierce warriors, was breaking through the last lines of defenders. He could feel victory close at hand, waiting for his brothers who had infiltrated the fortress to throw open the main gates. And then, with a crash, the heavy doors fell open. The gates were lifted, but on the other side of the grate, a formation of mounted knights in gleaming armor awaited them, led by the majestic Count Jerian Astrid. With a loud clash of steel, the knights crashed into the ranks of the orcs. Their swords struck down foes, but the fury of the greenskins was unstoppable. The battle was brutal, and soon it became clear that even the brave knights began to retreat under the onslaught of overwhelming forces. In the chaos of the fight, Count Jerian was wounded, falling heavily from his horse. The knight's helmet flew off to the side, revealing his face. At that moment, Droger's heart clenched. Lying directly before him was a man named Kairos, whom he had long believed to be truly dead. Their eyes met, reflecting the many years of shared fate and the profound weight of lost hope.
Kairos? I thought you were dead.
Droger rasped. The wounded count, struggling to his feet, replied to the old orc. Dead? Maybe, as far as you were concerned, since you didn't come to help me that day. But other slaves, humans, saved me. I escaped, wandered the wild lands until I stumbled upon scouts from the Order of the Black Falcons. They took me in, showed me the way, and gave me a new name. That day, I swore to cleanse these lands of orcs. Droger's blade was ready to strike, but his hand faltered. To kill Kairos, his old friend who had been through so much. No, he couldn't do it.
Run, Kairos. Run while you still can.
The chieftain growled, pointing to a gap in the orc ranks. But that moment of weakness did not go unnoticed. Suddenly, with a furious cry of
Traitor,
one of the orcs drove his axe into Droger's back. The great chieftain collapsed onto the blood-soaked ground. The remaining resistance knights were quickly crushed. The orcs, crazed with bloodlust, surged through the flung-open gates, flooding into the citadel. The stone shield had fallen. Its walls, once proudly towering over the valley, now stood as mere witnesses to defeat. But the war was only just beginning, and the body of Droger, who fell by the hand of his own warrior, was silently trampled by hundreds of Orcish feet, becoming nothing more than a shadow in the crucible of war. And his name, spoken for the very last time by a loyal friend, was utterly buried beneath the immense weight of the rapidly advancing horde.